Okay, this is the walk around for the 1989 NT-650 Hawk GT. I bought this bike from the original owner in 1994. The bike has 2,600 miles on it. It is in the original condition. It even has the original tires. And if you look at the pictures, I'll show you the date stamp of 1988 when the tires were made. The bike is in perfect condition. The bike is totally stock, including the tires. It's had a fresh, I pulled it out of the museum where it's been for a long time. And it has new oil and filter for the engine. The 2,600 miles has not required a new air filter, but it was checked just to make sure there weren't like mice or anything living in there. The front and rear disc brake systems have been flushed. The coolant system has been flushed. The engine was mothballed with a fogging oil when it was put into the museum a long time ago, and treated gas in a filled gas tank. That has been drained out, and fresh non-ethanol premium has been put inside of the gas tank, which on the inside is perfect, and flushed through the float bowls of the carburetor. And once we installed a new battery, it started right up. I mean, it is definitely a Honda. So I'll do a walk around, and I'll cover things not necessarily in any particular order, but I will say pay attention and look at all 24 of the high definition pictures, because I got pictures of the battery install going in, pictures of under the seat, and a lot of other important items. I'll call your attention first to the fact that the bike has 2,657 original miles on it, and you'll note that the handlebar instruments, brake reservoirs, faces of the instruments have no sun fading at all, because it's been in the museum for the majority of its life. I'll show you the VIN number. See that? You can see all of the original badging and labels. It has the stock exhaust. And then the decals on the tank, the side covers, the badging on the left side, the Elf France Honda single-sided rear swing arm, helmet holder. The original owner did do a tail tidy kit, which was very tastefully done and not overdone, but it really cleaned up the rear end of the bike. If you look at the pictures, you will see the original tool kit under the seat, the original owner's manual under the seat. You'll also see the new battery that has just been installed, and we also connected to it a battery tender hookup so that you can keep it charged. And the battery we used was a AGM, absorbed glass mat. It's a sealed battery, so other than trickle charging it once in a while, that's all you'll need to do. And as I said, it has the original tires on it. And this is 1989. Look at the pictures and you see the date stamps on the pictures. So I've left the tires on only because I want to document that this is in fact 2,600 miles, all OEM, all factory, no modifications. And the thing starts and runs, idles beautifully off choke. There's no issues with anything mechanically. So I'll do a walk around. So here's the front fender. the back side of the fender. You can see that there's no road damage that you'd normally see with a normal mile bike because it doesn't have anything. The radiator has no damage to it. The gas tank, you can see it's perfect. The seat is perfect. The side covers and tail section are all good. And as I'm doing this recording, I'm doubting whether or not I really want to sell this. But the only thing that makes me think I might is I have a 1988 gray Hawk in similar condition with 4,000 miles on it, but very similar condition. You can see the side cases are perfect. Foot pegs have no wear. I'm using a Pitbull single-sided swing arm stand to just hold the bike up here. But I will also say that it does have the factory center stand, factory kickstand. The last time that I bought the plates was in 2004, and I stopped renewing the plates in 2004, which ran until 2006. Because I have so many other bikes in the collection, I was stopping riding it to vintage dinners and vintage events because it's such in perfect condition that I didn't want to, jeopardize anything. And Honda was so ahead of their time. If you look at the rear disc, you can see that it's a single-sided rear swing arm, but the wheel is cast in such a way that it works like a fan, and it draws air in and blows air in on the rear disc brake to cool it as you drive. And Honda did a really good job using a shorty exhaust from the factory, so it did not hide the single-sided swing arm. And the same is true if you look at the discs on the cast wheel, where they're cut to where they're blowing like a fan air on the disc, front disc, to cool it. Well, I also forgot the fork oil's been replaced. It came with a 7.5 or so front weight fork oil, and I've found that when I replace the fork oil, if we use 15 weight, it just kind of firms up the front end a little better, and it's a nice improvement that only costs your time and the weight or the cost of the oil. But Honda had you can see the aluminum cast alloy frame, which was really light. These bikes were cutting edge in 88 and 89, which is why I have an 88 and 89. But I am making room in my museum for street legal, liquid cooled two-strokes that predominantly have not come to America. And so I'm doing this progression really slow, probably over the next 5 or 10 years. And it pains me to sell some of these bikes, but I am out of room. So I have to sell some, and this one here is like a crown jewel. And like I said earlier, it's only because I have an 88 gray one that I can sell this, because I at least retain one Hawk. So I will now do a startup. And I will say on the tape, for documentation purposes before I do the startup, that the bike has the original tires on it. So if you are not going to put this into another museum and you're going to ride it, which is every right of the new owner, you need to put new tires on it. And I would recommend Michelin Road Pilot 5s. They're great tires, and on this bike they'd probably last 8,000 miles a set. And they're good all around, all weather. tires. I have them on many of my other bikes. But I'm telling you now, if you're going to ride it, put new tires on, because these tires are pushing 30 years old, or are 30 years old, and they're hard and they're slick. So just be forewarned. But I want to sell the bike in this condition to document that it is totally legit. So I will start the bike. Here's the choke, and you pull it towards you, and then we turn on the key. We hit the starter. Starts right up. I'm going to back the choke off a little bit. When I get all my early 80s, 90s Hondas, almost by default, I have my master mechanic raise the needle 1 notch, or if they don't have a notch, we raise them 20 thousandths with the shim, just to make them idle. And then look at this, the choke is all the way off and it's idling. I'm not going to rev it hard. I'll let it warm up a little bit. But when the carburetors are adjusted properly, they run the way Honda intended them, not the way DEQ or EPA intends. So we will see here. Here is the low beam, high beam, the tail light. And what's really cool with a lot of the Hondas is they put 2 bulbs in the tail light, so even if one burns out, you have still a functioning tail light and brake light. There's the brake light. Here's the horn. Okay, and then as you sit on the bike, the left front turn signal, left rear turn signal, right rear turn signal, right front signal. And when you turn the signals off, all you have to do is push straight in. You don't have to, turn it backward the way you activated them. So if you're going to go left, you activate it, but then when you turn it off, you just push straight in. Really cool. And as I mentioned, the front and rear brakes have been flushed, the coolant's been changed, the engine oil and filter has been changed. When I got the bike, probably 20 years ago, even though it only had like 2,200 miles on it, we did check the valves. They were in sync, but the guy did have them checked at 600 miles, the first 600 mile service, and they were in sync. They were in sync at 2,200 miles. I have no reason to think they're not in sync at the 2,600 miles, and then it's like 6,000 mile intervals thereafter that they call for checking. And in actual reality, once you get past the first or second valve check, you think you could double that 6,000 miles without any issue, because the Hondas are really reliable. So I'm about done here. So you can see it's idling happy. The choke is all the way off. Turn it off. Restart it. So for all intents and purposes, this is a brand new 1989 Honda NT-650 Hawk GT. And I hope that whoever is the winning bidder or buyer on this unit fully appreciates the marvelous condition that this bike is in. The last thing I'd point out, which is very common on the Hawks to see, is if you note the patina on the stainless steel exhaust headers, that it is perfect light gold. And 19 out of 20 times what I see is people have touched the exhaust pipes, usually with oily hands after they're in the middle of changing the oil and filter, and they are permanently run because that oil bakes into the surface and you see those Mars forever. You can see it's blue right off the header, goes to a light gold down to the muffler. That is the perfect example of what those pipes are supposed to look like. If If you have any questions that aren't covered in this video or my ad text or the pictures, feel free to contact me. Thank you.